Welcome everybody to this presentation titled Integrating QR Codes with Testing, featuring Reg Strook of Polarian. Before we begin, I'd like to explain how to participate in today's event. You'll be watching streaming video and content, so to optimize your bandwidth, please be sure to close out any unnecessary applications running in the background. You'll notice a number of widgets at the bottom of your console. Here you may view the speaker bio and presentation abstract. Loving this presentation? Send us a tweet to our Twitter feed. Also, please send us your feedback about the presentation via a short 4-question survey. To submit a question, use the moderated chat function, and we will answer as many technical questions, or we'll answer the technical questions within the chat. And we will try to get to each of your questions to the speaker during the Q&A portion after the presentation. And with that, I would like to pass things over to Reg.
Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, great, thank you. Well, welcome ladies and gentlemen. My name is Reg Strook, and I'm a product manager at Polarian Software. In particular, I actually manage the Polarian QA product. Today I want to talk about QR codes, and what I'll do is talk a little bit about what they actually are, because some people actually confuse them a little bit with barcodes, how they can be used in your testing environment, the advantages to using QR in testing, some of the things that you should actually consider when embedding QR codes into your testing process, a little bit of a demo, and then some interactive Q&A. So what are QR codes? Well, the acronym actually stands for Quick Response Code. And it was created by Toyota. And actually it was a subsidiary, it was Denso, for inventory control in 1997. And it was used primarily in the automotive industry. The QR codes actually is like a barcode on steroids. What's different about it is it can contain a lot more data than a barcode and a lot easier to read. So you have a one-dimensional with a barcode, and with a QR code, you actually have it encoded both horizontally and vertically. So you can embed a lot more data, and then if you look at your mobile devices and you scan it, you notice it's pretty easy to scan it. Makes them very attractive because it contains more information. Gained in popularity since about 2007. You'll see from this particular graph that they've gained exponentially in popularity. And in fact, ComScore in 2011 said estimated about 14 million people actually on their mobile devices scanned QR codes, which represents about 6% of actual mobile device usage, and growing obviously. How they can be used? Well, the easiest is it's actually linking it to an actual website. And it's from your mobile device. That's the way that most people commonly use it, typically used in getting advertising and marketing. But it's very efficient because you don't actually have to type in a URL or any data. So it makes it a lot more efficient than actually creating data from your keyboard or on your slide screen. So I said about websites. What else did you know that text and images can be embedded into a barcode? And even more importantly than that, you can actually send email messages, and you can dial telephone numbers. So there's virtually endless possibilities in actually how you can use a QR code. This is an example in the Netherlands. It's a hotel, and what they've actually done is they've embedded, they went a little bit over extreme here, but they've actually embedded all over the entire hotel room with QR codes. And what they've done is that you can actually scan for services within the hotel. You can also get what amenities are available, local attractions, current news, and events. This particular case is your typical barcode. I use this one actually off of a popular website that generates barcodes. And with your mobile device, you can actually scan it and use your QR code scanning software. So you can't see this obviously, but you would actually scan the code, use your infrared, and the end result would be, this is an email message. So you could use this in the testing environment to generate emails. What's nice about with the QR codes is that you can actually share those emails and send emails from the software. Okay, so it really highlights the collaboration you can create within your testing environment. And you've got hyperlinks, and you've got anything you can think of within that particular email. So very powerful from an email perspective. Some of the advantages. Efficiency, we talked about that. So now you don't have to actually type or write things down. You can zap a code. Takes you to where you want from an information perspective. You can read it almost anywhere. Okay, so as long as you actually have access to a mobile device, and it's online and it's readable. Things to consider. Well, in reality, there actually isn't a lot of issues with using QR codes. There's not a lot of disadvantages, but there are things you should consider for using QR codes in your testing process. So one of them is compatibility. So you actually have to have the correct reader software that's on your mobile device. And funny enough, interesting, I was actually looking at the StarWest mobile app download, and there's a QR code on it. And I used my BlackBerry device with it, and it wouldn't scan it. Okay, so it's not actually the barcode that's on the page. It's actually the scanning software that I use. So those are issues to consider from that perspective. Sometimes you'll have software that's not compatible with all the barcodes. Or sorry, the QR codes. Also to consider is the fact that you're sending from this QR code to a URL. Okay, so, and you're reading it from a mobile device. So if your application in your test environment doesn't actually read very well from a mobile device, such as if there's flash embedded or something like that, those are things you have to consider. So, and that's a lot of times where a QR code actually fails. And it is limited to 500 characters, which is plenty though, because you're typically sending it to somewhere that's going to have some more information anyways. So how would you use it in test management environment? Well, the first thing you have to do is get a QR code generator. So I talked about QR code software. That's to actually read your QR codes. But you actually, if you want to use QR codes within your environment, you have to have something that generates those QR codes. There's lots of places online that you can get that are both free and commercial. One of my favorites actually is Kawa. And you can actually have it for free, and you can type in pretty much anything you want, and they'll automatically create a QR code for you. Second is that you have to determine, snap the code. So you want to be able to actually snap the code, but where do you want to snap it to? So from a testing environment, one of the areas that you could think of is the fact that a test case, or you want it to a particular work item, so it might be a requirement. So you have to determine what kind of information you actually, what's useful for you in that process, and where you want to actually have that linked to. And then the QR code has to be embedded virtually anywhere in that testing process. So we could take a QR code, we could put it into a test case, you can put it into your requirements, you can put it into a test run if you wanted to execute a test run, anywhere that you can think that it would provide use. Good example of that is, say for example, that we have test, pass, fail, or you want to block it. And instead of having to manually type that in, you could actually have QR codes that have already that it's a pass or it's failed. And you would just zap that from your mobile device rather than typing it in. So you can create some efficiencies from that perspective as well. So keep in mind is that QR code that you're going to use, or multiple QR codes you use, they're going to actually take you to particular builds. In this particular case, as I was suggesting that you can go to a test case, but it doesn't have to be the test case. It can be a test step, and it could be any kind of related artifact. So we would actually zap the QR code, and then you would want to manage your work item. You can view it, and then you could also go through a series of executing the test and view the results. Example in manufacturing. So think about on the floor of the manufacturing process, and you have to test the various areas of production. And one of the key things is that you would have to either sit at a laptop or you have to go back to your desk and look at the results of the particular test. Well, one of the key things that you could do with QR codes, you could actually have them on the production floor. You could zap those codes, and for example, you could have a list of tests I have to run today without having to go back to your actual desk. And then from there, you can take the appropriate action. So you could go from your mobile device and start working on those particular tests, or then you can also go back to your desk and go through running a series of tests. So it creates a lot of efficiency in being able to look at what, both on an action item perspective and also the test results. This example is from using QR codes in our product. This is the Polarian QA work item. So in this particular case here, you have a requirement, and it's an example work item. And you'll notice in the far right, we've actually embedded the QR code into it. So what would happen is that I can actually take my mobile device, I would zap the QR code, so I can have that anywhere. It could be on a projector, it could be in a meeting room that you're using. Zap the QR code. It would take me directly to that particular work item. And then instead of having to actually write down copious notes or put it into a tablet or anything, we could actually collaborate right there with that particular embedded item. Okay? And then the nice thing is that you can take the QR code and you could put it anywhere within your work item. So whether you wanted it to be in the description field, or you want it to be a URL or a link, or you want it to actually execute a test run, you can have that QR code anywhere that you want. So it makes sense within your testing environment. Another study is with Agile software. So you have your stand-up meeting, and obviously there's tests that are going to be discussed within that stand-up meeting. A lot of times it might be notes, it might be sticky notes, it might be just an informal discussion. One of the key areas is that you have to go back to your laptop or your computer, and you have to remember what those tests were and what the discussion was in the action items. What's really nice about if you use the QR code, you could actually just zap the particular QR codes that you want to discuss those tests. A lot of times it's the ones that have failed, or it might be a list of tests that you want to run that particular day, and you could actually have them brought up on a projector for the entire team to actually collaborate on. So that way you don't have to wait until someone actually forwards you a URL afterwards. And then also you don't have to remember what those action items were. So I've actually got a demo here for a second here, so just bear with me. Two seconds here. There we go. Okay, great. So this is the Polarian software product. It's our QA product. And what I was talking about is a specific work item. So we'd zap the code from that work item, and it brings you actually to, so for example, test performance from a gaming industry. And we could literally, if you look at this, within the QR code, we can see what that test is. So you would have a list, a series of tests, and you would literally be able to, from that QR code, run through your actual test cases. So if we look at, again, the example of the stand-up meeting, I would actually have a series of tests we might want to actually discuss. Might be 10 or 15 tests that we want to discuss. I've zapped that QR code using the mobile device, and it brings me directly to the actual list of test cases. In addition to that is that if we were even wanting to look at the results, we can go to the execution of the test run. So I could have the QR code where it actually is embedded and it runs to the actual test run. Okay? And then I could see that the particular test we're talking about. In this particular case, we could have the embedded code where it goes to the actual failed test. So very powerful from that way as well. So as you can see, there's a lot of advantages to using QR codes within your testing environment. Number one is the fact that you can create a lot of efficiencies in being able to go back and forth between your test cases and the issues you're discussing. You don't have to actually write any of this down. What ends up happening is it's linked right into your actual test case environment. Second is the collaboration, is that you're literally being able to collaborate with all your peers just by zapping a QR code. And you can share that information. So say you have a series of, you're a test manager, you have a series of tests you want to allocate on a daily basis to your team members, and you can actually have just display QR codes for them, say, at their desks every morning. They would zap that, and they would have a list of the QR of the work items that they have to work on in that particular day. So it really increases the collaboration. On a more important note is the fact that when things fail. So we know, for example, that literally when people care about tests is when things fail. So if you've got failure and you want to find out immediately, you could actually have that embedded into QR code. So you could actually say that it's a test that's failed in the QR code, brings you to the failed results, and also can send an email to the person that has to work on it. So the person that tests it uses the QR code. They would literally get the results that they want based on that QR code. Email message gets sent to the appropriate development staff, and they could work in real time on that particular test case. So a lot of efficiencies both on the rapid access to your test cases, but also the collaboration within your testing environment. So in essence, the future for QR codes in the testing environment is unlimited. And the reality of it is the fact that we have to think about where we want to put that in the process and where it makes sense. I'll take some questions from the audience if there's any questions.
I have one from the virtual audience.
Yes.
Okay, great. A mobile device may not necessarily be connected to a company's ALM/work item/requirement systems. If you scan QR code or scan a QR code on your mobile device, what are you actually loading on your mobile device?
Good question. So if you're scanning a QR code from your mobile device, what are you actually loading on to your device? Well, what you're actually loading is to a link. Okay? So the QR code actually, what it does is it links you to information. So it has to be something that's online. So if it's within the environment of a company, and say they're using, it's a closed environment, it would have to be within their VPN, for example, is a good example of that. Because QR codes are actually used online, and it's when you're scanning that particular information from the actual embedded code, it sends you to a linked area of information. So it's really, in essence, something that's on an example would be websites, but in particular for testing, it would be something that's web-based, a web-based application. Other questions? Any other questions at all? Or? All right. Well, thank you for your time.
That ends this event, and I just want to remind everybody to go to the presentation center to check out other presentations and their start times. And don't forget to join us for our live interviews. We have one that's about to start here with Johanna Rothman. That's going to start at around 3:45. To get there, go to the presentation center, click on the interviews tab, and then you'll have access to those interviews. Later on today, we'll have our final presentation at 4:30. That is the keynote's lightning strikes. Hot, and very popular presentation here at the conference. So we do hope that you join us for the interviews and that final presentation for today. Thank you.